Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show, and welcome to what I am calling right now another episode of Commander's Quarters Uncut, where I basically just, either come up with a topic that just comes to mind, or, maybe some recent news that happened. I just essentially turn on the camera and start talking about that. So yeah, I'm definitely going to probably make some mistakes, stumble over my words. And as always, blame Eddie for all that, right? So comment below. But yeah, on today's episode, I kind of have the exact opposite of another one of my more recent episodes, as long as these actually kind of come out in the right order, which hopefully I don't mess that up. But yeah, basically I did an episode on kind of what is the most, ban-worthy card in Commander, what card should definitely be banned. Kind of like defines, ban cards in Commander essentially in a way. And on this episode, again, I'm doing like the exact opposite of that. Basically, hey, what one card definitely should be unbanned? Like the one card that I think should be unbanned and just needs to be unbanned. And there's kind of no reason for it being banned, in my opinion. Now, obviously, there's definitely a lot of debate around, ban cards, and I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts are on, which card you think should be unbanned. If you think that I'm completely off on some of these cards that I think should be unbanned, or I'm going to kind of give reasons that they should be unbanned for. So yeah, with all that said, let's jump into it now. Again, I probably should have looked up a separate list, but just to make sure. But yeah, the list that I'm using is on Scryfall, just banned Commander, minus type Conspiracy, minus anti essentially is a word, because conspiracy cards, well, those cards, just banned for a reason that really work in the Commander format. They work specifically for, I believe, limited with conspiracy. Anti cards are just cards that are banned because they basically, have gambling in them, essentially utilizing your cards as an anti. If you lose the game, you lose your card, your opponent gets that. They had cards like that way back when Magic first started. Wizards like, maybe we shouldn't promote gambling, even though, cracking packs is kind of like gambling anyways. But yeah, they didn't want to get in trouble for that. So yeah, anti cards not allowed in Commander. The rest, though, on the list, looks like we have 51 cards that are banned. And yeah, I'm just going to bring up ones that I think definitely could be unbanned. I think that are unban worthy for one reason or another. And at the very end, I've got one card that I'm going to hold above the rest and say this card should be unbanned. So with all that said, let's jump into it. And the first one, actually, I think I actually mentioned this in the banned episode, kind of as like a card that's like the exact opposite, again, of one that I don't think should be banned for any reason, essentially. And when it was banned, I was like, huh? It just kind of was out of left field. And that is Iona, Shield of Emeria, a legendary creature angel with flying. That's a 7/7 that costs 6 white. So 9 mana. Says, as enters the battlefield, choose a color. Your opponents can't cast spells of the chosen color. Yeah, I mean, this thing is massive. It's going to take quite a long time to actually get out. Yes, there are ways to cheat it out, sure. But also, there's going to be plenty of scenarios where, okay, sure, yeah, you got rid of this one color. Your opponents can deal with it with other colors. There's plenty of ways to deal with things like this. Now, obviously, the scenario that the Rules Committee wants to avoid, because this commander is definitely, well, it is a commander, but it's really not, it was never used as a commander. I think it had like 200 decks to its name when it was banned. It was used in 99, but barely at all, like in 2% of decks again or something like that. Something incredibly small that it doesn't matter, not even 2% decks. Anyways. Because yes, and in the singular scenario where, oh no, that player's playing a monocolor deck, you shut them down completely. Oh, okay, sure, but Commander's a multiplayer format, so you could, maybe work with other players to, take out this 9 mana card for you to, help with that. You can make deals, you can politic. There are ways around it. And again, it is 9 mana. There are plenty of other 9 mana cards that basically essentially end the game. Now, the only problem with this one is the Rules Committee's, kind of mind basically is, this is a feel bad for that one player. This ends the game for that one player. So does like Door to Nothingness. I mean, obviously that takes, a little bit more mana, a different turn. But yeah, essentially, yeah, there are plenty of other ways to take out a singular player and just kind of make it so they're out of the game. But yeah, this one, for whatever reason, again, and again, it didn't see that much play at all. So kind of, when this one was banned, it was just very much out of left field, and essentially for, very little reason. I mean, the joke is, and I have no idea if this is true or not, obviously I'm not trying to claim that, I was there for this or anything like that, but the joke is that, someone from the Rules Committee was playing a game and they were playing a monocolor deck and they got shut down by this. So maybe that happened, maybe it didn't, but yeah, I can understand the thought behind it, but kind of in practice, again, when this card sees like no play, it doesn't make any sense to really ban it at all. It's a very, fringe scenario that would happen where, hey, oh, you're playing a monocolor deck, okay, I shut you down, and no one else is going to deal with it. So yeah, I just, this one, I definitely don't think should be banned. Another card that I believe was banned essentially around the exact same time, or at the exact same time, is Golos Tireless Pilgrim. This one is a very powerful commander. It is not as powerful as other commanders, though, out there that are still very much in action. I mean, Urza, I'm looking at you. Corvold, more powerful than it as well. There's plenty of more powerful commanders out there. The reason that it was banned, though, is basically the rules committee doesn't really like 5-color. It doesn't seem like that, does it? They don't like 5-color good stuff, and they don't like when players utilize it like that, because I think they just think it's boring for players to just like, I'll just take all like these huge cards and utilize them in one deck with a commander. Should probably read this one first. Legendary Artifact Creature Scout, costs 5. When it enters the battlefield, it may search the library for a land card upon the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Pay 2 Woodburg, exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn with paying their mana cost. Yeah, a very powerful effect. You can do some very powerful things with it. Sure, there are ways to make it, into a very broken build if you really want to go around that, to do extra turns or whatever. Sure. I mean, your player is going to be okay with that, first up, but still. There are some really powerful things that you can do with this. It's definitely not the most powerful commander out there by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, again, the main reason this one is built is the rules committee is like, oh, well, we want to inspire players to build in different ways with that. Well, okay, all that happened essentially was, those 5-color players that are playing good stuff just essentially said, okay, I'm not using Golos anymore, I'll just use Kenrith. So yeah, I mean, basically you're just saying, those players are just going to utilize another 5-color commander that is very powerful. I mean, Kenrith is potentially even more powerful than Golos just with the things it can do. But yeah, it's just, you're not going to stop players from building the kinds of decks that they enjoy playing and want to play. And just because you don't like 5-color good stuff doesn't mean other players can't. So yeah, I definitely don't think that the ban on Golos was warranted, especially again with some of the other commanders out there that are much more, broken, much more overpowered. Yeah, I just don't know why that one was banned, except for the rules committee just doesn't like 5-color good stuff, apparently. Next up, this one might be a little controversial. And actually, all of these might be controversial because, yeah, please comment below and let me know your thoughts on them are. But the Moxen, Mox Emerald, Sapphire, Diamond, all the Moxen, Ruby. I'm missing one, Jet. I should have had them all in front of me. I only have Mox Emerald in front of me. Anyways, it's an artifact for 0 that can tap for one of the 5 colors, again, depending on which of the Mox it is. Mox Emerald taps for a green. That's just the one that I pulled for whatever reason. Regardless, yeah, the reason that the Mox are banned, essentially, in my opinion, is the rules committee is like okay with like some fast mana for some reason. They're like, oh yeah, like Soul Ring completely fine for whatever reason. Soul Ring's completely fine, even though it's like banned everywhere else. Oh yeah, Mana Crypt completely fine as well. Oh, but those Moxen, nope, those have to be banned. Those just have to be banned. There's no way that those could ever work. It's like you've had kind of like this like threshold of, like, oh yeah, we can allow this many fast mana cards. Oh, but not those. Oh, or maybe the other reason is essentially, well, okay, well, those aren't in the, restricted list. Soul Ring's not, restricted card. Neither is Mana Crypt, neither is Mana Vault. All those cards, essentially. But you know what? The Mox, oh, those are expensive. Those are restricted. So, yeah, or the reserve list or whatever. I said restricted. The reserve list. I'm looking at the thing right now. It says restricted vintage. Anyways, yeah, basically, since these are on the reserve list, they're expensive. Oh, we don't want to allow those in the format then. I don't believe that, I'm a budget player. I play with the lowest budget, essentially, the lowest budget cards all the time. And yeah, like, I don't care if someone else is playing a $10,000 deck across me. That's completely fine with me. It does not matter. Players should be able to play with their cards, essentially, right? So, yeah, allowing, reserve list cards, allowing cards that might be expensive, yeah, I think is completely fine. And by saying that the Mox should be banned, but okay, Soul Ring's fine, Mana Crypt's fine, Mana Vault's fine. You're kind of speaking out of both sides of your mouth in that, essentially. Just because, one, and I don't know if the rules committee has said basically, it's on the reserve list, so therefore, yeah, this is the reason. But yeah, it's like they don't want more fast mana, but they're okay with some fast mana. So either ban it all or don't ban any of it. And I'm definitely on the side of not banning things. So don't ban the Moxen then. So yeah, now would that leave some problems? Maybe, probably not. Anyways, speaking of problems, Flash. Flash is a card that was banned for one very specific reason. Competitive EDH, CEDH. That is the only reason this card was banned. It was banned for no other reason than that. It was not causing problems at all in Commander. In non-competitive Commander. Non-CEDH Commander. The more Commander type of play that most Commander players play. Non-CEDH. Flash an instant for 1 and a blue. You may put a creature card from your hand on the battlefield. If you do, sacrifice unless you pay its mana cost. Reduce up to 2. This one very famously combos with Protein Hulk, I believe is the card, essentially. Yeah, so I mean, on turn 1, basically those kinds of decks could just, hey, okay, I mean, I need like a Lotus Spell or whatever to play this, but yeah, there's plenty of ways to get extra mana. Play Flash, get Protean Hulk out, it sacrifice, you get its trigger, you go get whatever combination of creatures that you need, you know, up to 6 mana value, I believe, or whatnot, total, to just win on the spot. So yeah, you can just win on the spot really quick in a game of Commander. And that was causing problems in CDH because basically all the decks were just Flash Hulk, essentially. Now, not that I don't have sympathy for that, but when you are, again, making decisions for a format, I mean, again, in my opinion, again, I mean, I guess my opinion, and also just kind of just the facts of the format are that the majority of people don't play CDH. So if you're going to start making, you know, bans specifically for that higher tier level of Commander that, again, don't impact, you know, Commander players, or it's not, you know, the ban isn't intended to help, you know, the major, you know, I'm trying to say, again, non-CDH. I'm not trying to say just Commander players, but again, like the non-CDH Commander players, then that can become a slippery slope. Again, I know Fast as Oracle is still very much a problem in competitive EDH. So again, it's kind of like, oh, well, they banned it. And again, I believe they said during this, like, oh, it's just going to be once. It's just going to be once. But I mean, if, you know, CDH still needs some more help, you know, making the format actually work without certain cards, there's probably going to be some more pressure again at a certain point, especially again if something else, you know, more broken comes out essentially that doesn't, you know, impact Commander because Commander players don't play Flash Hulk, then yeah, it can just lead to some problems when you're banning cards that are not for, again, the majority of the way that players actually play the format. Next up, how about a card like Biorhythm? This one's always kind of like a joke, you know. Biorhythm, you know, it's a terrible card in a lot of formats. It is legal in Modern, Legacy, Vintage, and even Penny. It is legal in, you know, because it's legal in all those formats because yeah, it's just like oh sure. I mean, it's kind of a fun effect, but it's not one that's going to break anything. It's a sorcery for 6 green. It says each player's life total becomes the number of creatures they control. Yeah, I mean, it's a novel effect. It's one that, yeah, can take players by surprise. If you're playing a bunch of creatures, which you are if you're in green, you're going to be fine. You might even gain life with this, essentially. Or, yeah, it's not going to really take you down all that much. You can take down other players quite a bit. And then also, if, you know, someone's maybe playing a control strategy or whatnot, essentially, and they don't really have a lot of creatures in play or any creatures in play, and they don't have a counterspell for this, they're just gone. Again, kind of like I talked about with Iona, there are plenty of 8 mana spells that are just like, hey, yeah, let's end the game, essentially. So, yeah, and obviously there are plenty of ways to get up to 8 mana. Biorhythm is just one that's kind of just like on the edge, I think, of that, you know, not ban-worthy because, I mean, it's something that you can, you know, control. You control the number of creatures you have in play, and, you know, maybe if Biorhythm becomes a problem in your meta, play more creature-based strategies, or if you're going to play, you know, again, those non-creature-based strategies, maybe have more counter spells available to ensure that you can, you know, protect yourself from something like this. Yeah, it's one of those that I can see the reasons why it's banned. I can also see the reasons why it's not banned. It's one of those kind of jokes that just kind of comes up. And actually, I think the bigger one that does come up along those same lines is Coalition Victory. A sorcery for 3 in Wooburg. You win the game if you control a land of each basic land type and a creature of each color. Now this one is, I mean, I guess the condition for winning with this one is both easier and more difficult than Biorhythm. Biorhythm's like, hey, yeah, if that player doesn't have any creatures, they're gone. Coalition Victory is like, no, you need these specific things, and once you have those things, you're going to win. Now, that being said, this can be very easily disrupted again. Obviously, it is an 8 mana spell that does, you know, have some good color fixing that you need for it. 3 in Wooburg. So yeah, obviously it's not that easy to cast. I mean, obviously there are plenty of ways to ramp. There are plenty of ways to fix your mana. You can cast it. But yeah, you do need to meet those conditions, which, sure, yes, there are plenty of 5-color commanders out there that just, you know, if you play this in a with Sliver Queen deck, sure, your commander being in play meets that condition. That being said, usually with this, you have, you know, that singular creature, whatever, that is kind of like a linchpin for it, where if that gets taken out, this does nothing. You know, I mean, and obviously you also need to be able to fix your lands to essentially get one land of each type. There are certain cards that are like, hey, all your lands are all basics or whatnot. Sure, that works too. But yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is, not only can this just be disrupted with, you know, a counter spell, being an 8 mana spell that then, you know, just counters and does nothing, or yeah, if you cast it, and you only have, again, your 5-color commander in play that meets that requirement for, you know, a creature of each color, and then someone just, you know, takes out your commander, yep, then that does nothing. You just wasted 8 mana. You do not win the game. So this is just kind of, again, one of those, like, the rules committee really doesn't want those, like, feel-bad moments, you know, again, where it's like, oh, you know, I'm definitely in the lead. I'm doing all these cool things. Awesome. I'm definitely going to win. Then all of a sudden, other player just is like, oh, okay, Coalition Victory. I win. And it's just like, oh, they won without doing all the things that I did. I was supposed to win that game. But I mean, also, they also built up, you know, the presence to actually get to that point where they had met those conditions. You didn't, you know, save anything up to ensure that you could stop them from doing something like this. And yeah, 8 mana, again, for a game-ending spell. Yeah, there are plenty of, you know, other 8 mana things that are like, you need to deal with that or you lose kind of cards. So yeah, I think Coalition Victory is definitely one that could be considered to be unbanned. Another one that has made the list, at least for me, is Primeval Titan. A 6/6 giant with trample that costs 4 green. Enters the battlefield or attacks, you may search the library for the 2 land cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. This one, I mean, yes, is a very powerful effect, absolutely. But there are other cards, in fact, one that just got printed in Brothers War, that can go get you to any 2 lands, essentially, and get them right into play. Now, this one obviously can be used and abused a lot more. You can get that trigger a lot because enters the battlefield, you get it right away. Whenever it attacks, so if you give it haste or, you know, just each turn when you're attacking with it, great. Or, you know, again, since it's an ETB, you can keep blinking it, you know, in certain decks to get that trigger a lot. Now, of course, there are certain land combinations that can be combos as well, like, you know, Dark Depths and Thespian Sage. I was going to say Merit Lage, but yeah, that's the creature it makes, essentially. But yeah, there are, of course, you know, land combos that you can utilize with this. But yeah, again, there are other cards out there that essentially get you those land combos too. So yeah, that's not the inherent issue. I think the issue with this one is, well, and I think the rules committee's mentioned this before, is that like, oh, well, okay, first of all, it's kind of time consuming to get those lands over and over again, but there's plenty of other ways to get lands over and over again that just become time consuming as well. And then also, yeah, this one just like the kind of game, you know, circles around this card essentially once it comes out. Like, oh, I need to get rid of, you know, this Primeval Titan. Oh no, or like, oh, I want to like steal it, gain control of it, and then like it's mine. There's a lot of other cards out there that the game will revolve around if they come into play as well, like Blightsteel Colossus. Yeah, every single player is going to want to get a copy of that, or, you know, steal it if they can, or take it out. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I think this card is banned for a variety of reasons, but I think, again, we have other cards that basically do the exact same thing in a way, like as a one-off typically. But still, I don't think that this one is overpowered enough that it should be banned. I think that, yeah, there's some annoyance to it. But yeah, not ban-worthy in my opinion. In a somewhat similar way, kind of on the opposite end though, Sylvan Primordial, a 6/8 avatar with reach that costs 5 green. Enters the battlefield. For each opponent, destroy target non-creature permanent the player controls. For each opponent destroyed this way, search the library for a forest card, put that card on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. This one is, yeah, I mean, land destruction, and technically mass land destruction. You can get rid of, you know, non-creature permanents quite easily with this, and you get a benefit when you do. And yeah, typically with this, I mean, at a certain point, you're just going to be taking out your opponent's lands and ramping when you're doing so. So yeah, your opponents are going down. You're going up quite a bit. I mean, obviously, this is quite a bit of mana. Again, 7 mana, and it needs to be dealt with. I mean, there are more powerful creatures out there. There are more powerful effects. Obviously, many Commander players out there don't enjoy land destruction. But yeah, there are plenty of other land destruction cards out there that are much worse as well. I mean, Armageddon, it's legal in Commander. You know, if your play group isn't okay with, you know, land destruction, yeah, Sylvan Primordial probably isn't going to see a ton of play with it, you know? So it's just like, and yes, again, this one's more flexible. So yeah, you can get rid of you know, it says non-creature, right? So non-creature permanents. You can get rid of things that aren't lands. Now, eventually you are going to get to those lands. But yeah, this is definitely a card that I think's on that cusp of like, yeah, I can see the reasons for why it's banned, but I don't think it should be. This one, really, and I went back and forth between this card and another one, which we'll get to here in a second, on it being, you know, the top spot for not ban worthy. Panoptic Mirror, an artifact for 5 with imprint for X. Tap, you may exile an insert source card with mana value X or less from your hand, X from your hand. Beginning of your upkeep, you may copy a card exiled Panoptic Mirror. If you do, cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Yeah, I mean, the reason for this one being banned is like, oh, well, you could get like a very mean instant or sorcery that you could keep doing again and again and again and again. Again, like Armageddon, just talked about that one. Sure, if you Armageddon every single turn, yeah, no one can essentially keep lands in play. Woo! I mean, again, how many Commander players out there are running Armageddon? Number 1. Number 2, sure, okay, oh, extra turns. Yeah. I mean, you can do that with this. Again, though, and this is kind of where communication really needs to, you know, kind of improve in the Commander format. Like, Commander's a social format, so just talk. And yeah, many Commander players out there are very open to talking about, you know, what kinds of strategy, what kind of decks they're not okay playing against or with. And if you just kind of establish those things at the beginning of the game, great. Hey, are you okay with, you know, extra turns decks? Are you okay with me just, you know, taking all the turns? Oh, you're not? Okay, I'll play a different deck, or I'll change up my strategy. So yeah, I mean, Panoptic Mirror sure can be used and abused with cards like that. But also, I mean, I mean, let's just even talk about, mana-wise. For Armageddon, getting that again and again and again, that's what? You play this artifact for 5 mana, you pay 4 mana to tap and exile it from your hand, and then this has to stick around until your next upkeep, or else, it's getting taken out. You just wasted all that mana and 2 cards, essentially. It's a 2-for-1 at that point then. Yeah, sure, if it sticks around, yeah, you destroy all the lands again and again and again. Cool. And for extra turns, yeah, this is like a really weird, convoluted combo, essentially, to win the game. Again, with, most of your typical, like, a Time Warp or whatnot. Is that right? Time Warp? Yeah, I think so. Anyways, Temporal Mastery, whatever those are. 5 mana. Sure. Okay, so play your Panoptic Mirror, 5 mana. Pay another 5 mana. Tap. Exile that from your hand. Hope that it sticks around until your upkeep, and if it does, cool, you win the game. You get all the extra turns. So that was 10 total mana. 2-card combo. You have to wait for it actually to resolve, kind of, for it actually to work. And again, if this gets dealt with, you just lost out on 2 cards instead of, just taking an extra turn for just 1, essentially for one of the 2 cards. So yeah, this card, I mean, I keep going back and forth on this one being kind of my most, unbannable card, essentially. The card that should be unbanned out of all of them. Panoptic Mirror, again, there are just other 2-card combos that work incredibly more efficiently and just like, are just absurd. Again, Dockside, Teamer Sabertooth, you've got, okay, goodness gracious, I'm slipping on Dramatic Reversal, Ice Crown Scepter. I mean, technically that's more than 2, but yeah, you have Mana Rocks in play. Anyways, there are other more efficient combos out there, and this just is like, why is this one on the list? I can see what combos you can utilize with it and what annoying things you can do with it, but also, meh. Okay, last one. And this is the one, and I'm glad I actually kept it at the #1 spot, and this one, I think, again, this kind of just illustrates my kind of belief in Commander players and that they can kind of, have those conversations ahead of time, that they can, ensure that this stays a social format where, you just talk through things ahead of time. Or, if you already had a game that, like, oh, I thought my deck was a 7, but, it definitely works more like an 8 or a 9, in this kind of, scenario with this play group. Okay, then I'll tune things down. I'll adjust. I believe Commander players can adjust. I believe Commander players can communicate. So Braids should be unbanned. And not the new Braids, which is not banned, and not the blue Braids, which is not banned. Braids Cabal Minion, a legendary human minion for 2/2 for 2 black. Beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifice an artifact, creature, or land. This, in the 99, is not at all broken. This is not at all broken. This is not at all problematic, and that's not why it is banned. There are plenty of other cards out there that do much worse things than this one. I mean, Smokestack is legal, essentially, right? Like, there are plenty of ways to ensure that players are sacrificing things, including precious lands, yes. But yes, I mean, the kind of like, terror scenario, the awful scenario that happens where players are so afraid of, apparently, according to the rules committee, is that, oh no, someone places as their commander, and then, okay, turn 1 gets out, or whatever, the Jewel Lotus or whatnot. Oh no, the game's done, because, everyone else can't get lands out, or when they get a land out, they have to sacrifice at their upkeep, and then that player that has Braids as their commander obviously has, a bunch of fodder that they keep sacrificing so they can, stay ahead of it, essentially. Oh no, terrible. Yeah, a couple of things with that. Number 1, if you're playing against Braids, you know that player's going to be doing that. So get ready to try to stop them. And that's, again, if you agree to play against Braids. Because, again, there are certain kinds of commanders out there that I also don't want to play against, essentially. Like, I mean, again, those conversations ahead of time before the game even starts. If someone's like, hey, are you okay if I play my Staxy, Grand Arbiter Gus in the 4th deck? Be like, could you play a different deck? Would you mind playing a different deck? Yeah, there are certain kinds of decks out there, like Stacks, Mass Land Destruction, that kind of stuff where it's just like, I typically don't want to play against those decks. Or, I've got a hyper-focused, Urza CDH deck, essentially, that's going to win on turn 2 consistently. Yeah, I probably don't want to play against that one either. And I will ask politely if that player, would like to pick up a different deck and play with that one instead. So it's just, again, those conversations where Braids is banned because, essentially, again, they took away banned as commander, not banned as commander. I can understand why that can be confusing or whatnot, and why that's going to be a thing or whatnot. But, like, Braids Cabal Minion, the fear that this is going to just cause a lot of problems as a commander, again, can be solved very simply by just having a conversation before the game starts. Being like, hey, are you okay if I play Braids as my commander? If the answer is yes, they know what they're getting into. If the answer is no, then play a different deck. Like, it's just, I mean, it's quite simple. It's quite easy that, like, the expectation, I think just should be, hey, players can just be rational. Players can be reasonable. And again, there's no reason for a card like Braids to be banned in the 99 at all. And banning something as a commander, just specifically for it being a commander, I find to be quite silly as well. So yeah, that is why Braids, free Braids, Braids deserves to be unbanned. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but I would really like it too, as well as many of these other ones that I mentioned, or at least a couple of them. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of reasons why the cards I mentioned on this episode, I understand why they're banned. I understand, you know, the thought process behind it, but I disagree with it. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts on the cards I brought up today? Should they be banned? Should they not be banned? Should other cards I didn't bring up, you know, be unbanned essentially? Should Braids be unbanned? Yes, it definitely should. Anyways, let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support.